Black Fox Foundation Theater, and our guest today is Phil Rakoci, also known as Wildman Phil. Phil is a Casa Grande-based wildlife educator, as well as the president of the Black Fox Foundation Board. So Phil, to start off today, we always ask, and I mentioned this to you off camera, but we always ask our guests to share a little bit about their story for audience members who might not be familiar with them.
Gotcha. And I get that question a lot. First off, how do you actually make a career out of working with animals and people and bring them together? And it kind of started, first off, as I was a young kid. I had an interest in the kind of weird creatures. And I remember we're talking first, second grade, I was, checking out books on the things that you heard stuff about that you're like, wow, is that true? It did start with sharks. That was my original interest. Being in Arizona and native, that didn't go very far. We don't have a lot of those. So it turned into snakes, really, but then other things, and the more you learn, the more questions you have. I used to go to my local library here and check out books on, everything from spiders and lizards, snakes, and plants, everything that was weird. And then it kind of developed into the more questions you have, the more books you read, the more you learn, and that interest turned into a hobby that turned into a career, and here I am 30 years later, still trying to help others understand the truth about these animals. So that's how the whole thing basically started.
Mm-hmm. And could you share, so what's your love for working with animals? What's motivated you to make that, your career and dedicate your life to?
I mostly because I like to advocate for the, misunderstood creatures. And I'm not the only one now. There's a lot of it out there, and with technological advances and things in the last number of years, there's more of us being able to reach more people, and you can actually see it working. But it, started as that, and that's kind of been the motivation is, I want you to know the truth, okay? What your mom or grandma or whoever told you or whatever about that animal, it's not even close, No, a tarantula is not going to chase you down. It's not going to jump at you and attack you. Rattlesnake's not going to chase you down, fly through the air. Things like that that are all over the spectrum on these kind of creatures. And that's basically what it is that keeps me going is, getting people to understand. Hey, I like that animal. And to quote the late great Steve Irwin, he's the one who said, people will protect what they love, and if you can get them to love these important creatures, they're going to protect them. So that's basically why I still am able to do what I do and enjoy it all the time still.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been doing your Wildman Phil show?
So the very first show that I ever did was back in the mid-'80s. I was 13. So not to give away my age, but yeah, that was like almost 40 years ago, 39 years. And I had our next door neighbor was a first grade teacher, Jan Schaefer, and I had a small collection of some of these reptiles, and she saw something apparently and asked me one day, hey, would you mind, bringing those to my class and sharing, about these animals with my class? And I said, sure. And so I did, and I ended up there all day because, she drove me there, and I was 13 and couldn't drive. And so while I was there, the other first grade teachers all came, hey, can you show ours and ours? And the local photographer for the Casa Grande Dispatch showed up and took a picture and blah, blah, blah. And the next day I was on the front page of the paper holding a horn lizard, and I didn't know it was that big of a deal of what I did. But then it was a few years later, as I was getting ready to go to college and decide what I want to do with my life and stuff, I thought about, hey, now I even had more animals and stuff. And so I contacted a few of the schools in the area. I was like, hey, if you want me to bring some animals, then I can. And one of the first grade teachers from there, Mary Pettinger, she went ahead and contacted me and said, oh, I want you to come back in. And then she had me do it every year for a few years. And word got out, and I kind of started with schools. And from there, did some work for colleges and went on to other things. Now I'm doing festivals and fairs and RV parks and churches and bars and everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how it all, got going, and it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, yeah, you started young. That's wonderful.
Right.
So one thing I would love to ask you is, what do you think, obviously we mentioned you have a love for animals and a love for telling people or showing people, the different side of animals that they might be a little bit more hesitant of or scared of, but what for you would you say, aside from that, what would you say is something you wish more people understood about what it is you do?
Man, that's, I don't know, I guess the interaction with people and, supporting your community and different things, I guess, that, that's another base for what I do. A lot of stuff is, that's the working with animals part is cool. Well, getting bit by different things is part of the hazard of the work. So that's not necessarily the cool part, but to me, it's actually more of the people. So it's me getting to help people, and so when I look at, okay, when I'm not on stage doing a show, what is it that I'm doing, and it's still that kind of thing. So it's help however I can here for this organization or that one, or doing something else for the kids or anything in the community kind of thing. And I think that's where it's actually the basis for me, is being able to help people. I mean, yeah, I'm an advocate for the animals out there, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I feel that I'm actually helping the people more. So, and doing it with comedy, it's fun. I learned a long time ago, people would rather be entertained than educated. So if you trick them into learning, say, I just gave away my secret, yeah. But, that's the thing, is interacting with people. I like people, I like animals, I brought it together. So, I guess that's probably, the only big thing out there, I guess. I don't know.
That's incredible. So if I were to attend one of your shows, can you share a little bit about how many different kinds of animals I might see in a show and what they might be?
Gotcha. It really depends on the show. We have 200-something animals. Not all of them go to all the shows. My middle daughter, Emmy, had kind of years ago had this idea of an exotic pet rescue, because there was no such thing around then. And so and I've always done that, because people have whatever, lizard, snake, turtle that kids went off to college, we got to get rid of, who takes care of it. So we've got a lot of those that are rescues that don't really travel, but we have a very good supply of that. And we do a lot of themed stuff, so it really depends. But a general show, if I'm going to do a stage show, it's going to be 6 to 10, maybe 12 animals. It's usually going to be some kind of bug, like a tarantula, scorpion, vinegar, and something like that, something weird. Then I've got a variety of lizards that you'll see, everything from beautiful tiny T-Rex type lizard called a collared lizard. Big hit is the Gila monster, because everybody hears about them, but they never see them, and they got their name because of the stories, the monster stories about them that aren't true. So you got to set all that straight. But I also have lizards from Australia, the blue-tongued skinks. We've got soft-shelled turtle. He's a big hit. He likes to bite my face off of, or try. He never has actually yet. But and then a few different snakes, from some local, king snake to infamous corn snake. Sometimes big python from Asia. Got alligators in the show, sometimes a baby alligator, sometimes a big one. Tortoises. I've got the super famous Stumpy, the tortoise with a wheel, who's an African spurred tortoise, and he's like 80 pounds. He doesn't do a lot of shows anymore, but he lost his front leg, so we attached a wheel to him, and so he's a fan favorite. But that's kind of generally the sort of things that would be in a show. Now I do a lot of shows for, like, when they do movie premieres. So Jurassic Park, that's a big one, because I have dinosaurs, living dinosaurs come and do a show and bring people in, that kind of thing. So that would be heavy on, stuff like the snapping turtle, different, the iguana or the tegu, and the alligator, different things. So do a lot of themed stuff. If somebody wants just snakes or just turtles or whatever, we can make that happen as well. So, but yeah, it's usually a variety in a general one. You'd probably like the hedgehog. That's probably the cutest animal I have. So yeah, most people are like, I don't know, I want to see a snake, a lizard maybe, and then the hedgehog comes out. And, oh, I'm glad I came. Whatever. So just like I said, depends on the show. But generally, you're going to get those kind of things.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so switching gears a little bit, I mentioned earlier that you are the president of the Black Box Foundation on the board. Can you share a little bit about how you got involved with Black Box and what motivated you there?
Gotcha. So I've always been myself an advocate for, well, people and bringing people together, people having fun. Performing arts. I was never in drama club or anything like that as a kid. I obviously, made my living off of performing. And so when I first heard from Ken Ferguson and Stacy Seaman, who originally started the Black Box Foundation, I thought it was a great idea. I honestly don't remember even how the three of us ever met, but they were performers, I was. We had mutual contacts or whatever. And so when the Black Box Foundation started, and their mission is to promote performing arts and advance education, those are two things that I'm pretty heavy in. And so I had some of my kids that actually participated in their first program, which was called simply Kids Club. And it was bring kids together, teach them improv, some different things, and get them kind of out of their shell and comfortable with doing things. And so my daughter Emmy was in that. Actually, all three of my kids, my son Archie and my youngest daughter Mary were. My older daughter Holly was kind of too old for that, but they participated in that, and I kind of saw what was going on there with that group of kids, and I was like, this is something I could support. And so I got involved with that with them, and then I partnered up my company with that of doing the shows and things. And so it was nice to be able to help there, and then kind of kept my kids going. And my son decided he wasn't really big on doing the plays and performing arts stuff, but both of my youngest two daughters have stayed with that. And then being involved, getting on the board, things have changed a lot in the last 12 years. And so we done big things. We actually have our own theater spot now. Well, I mean, we rent it from the city, but you know what I mean. It's an actual theater that we put a lot of work into doing that and different things. And once again, getting to see something important grow in our community and for our community is something that has meant a lot to me. And it's been kind of fun to watch. Like my daughter Emmy started literally in the first kids club they ever had. Came up doing shows, learning assistant directing for our directors, different things, and now she's the actual artistic director of the theater, and she's the one who picks everything and makes it all happen, and she's directing and teaching people, and she's doing her version of helping the community learn things. And that's how it's kind of evolved with me, is to now I can do a little bit less with it now because we've got great staff, other wonderful board members, and volunteers and things that help it all go. So, but it was kind of still that passion of let's get people involved, bring them something that they may not know that they need, because everybody's had their kid be in a school play. You go and you see it. Yeah, it's fun. Okay, I get that part, but what you don't realize is even in that setting, is those kids are building confidence, things that are going to be useful later in their life, things that go well beyond that. We hear that all the time from parents involved that hey, I said Jonathan, he was just a little shell of a kid, and now boom, here this guy's got confidence, he's doing this, and he's doing better in sports, he's doing better with his friends, he's doing better in society and in helping the community more, and things like that from lots of different people that they were thought it was just I'll let my kids learn how to act a little, and it's getting on stage and performing in front of people takes a lot more than you might think, and I'm not saying everybody in our program is going to end up being a professional, on Broadway or something, but they end up being able to do whatever it is they're doing better, and that's what I see in it, and that's why I'm still involved with it. And I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but you see good results, and so that's how that has come about. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned, so I love the fact that you mentioned community and kind of using education and using people's passion to kind of get them excited about something. And I would love if you could speak to, if you could give advice to maybe whether it be other individuals in the community who are looking to get involved, or even just members of our youth who are starting to think about, what they want to do with their life. If you could give advice to them about, I would say advice about, getting involved in your community and what you think the takeaways are from that, what would it be?
Being a couple of things. First off, do what you can to be involved with your community. I mean, that's literally why we have a community. Without people's involvement, we don't have a community. So it's kind of important. And I think that one of the things that I have told many kids is you can do that now. And I'm not talking attend, the city council member meetings and do whatever. That's not necessarily something you do as a kid, but you get involved in something, and whatever your interest is, follow that. Now, that may change, and I get that too, but if there is, something that you're doing, if it's, you like, doing Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, there's organizations for that. When you get into that, you start meeting other people in your community. And, that's what I would say is, get in there young, and more of that's to the parents, obviously. Your kids aren't sneaking out at night and, going and doing theater, I hope. Anyway, but it's something that I always encourage the kids, as you don't have to wait till you're an adult to figure out your life. That's my thing. I started literally second, third grade. I'm going to my library, I'm checking out books, I'm learning about all this stuff. And so when it came time to be an adult, I already had so much knowledge and information and experience in different things. And that's what I tell everybody, whatever your interest is, whether it's, you like trains or cars or building things or whatever, history, politics, whatever your thing is that you like, get into that. And think about that you could actually use that to get into, a career. Anybody out there that picks something, if you're like drawing, you're an artist. Oh my gosh, that's the thing that I'm always amazed with, because I can't do that. And there's some people with natural talent, they start working on stuff. And you don't just wake up one morning when you're 21 years old and you're in college, you're like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm going to be an artist. It doesn't work like that. I'm going to be a musician. I think I'll learn something about music now. Now, do that when you're young. Mom's telling you to take piano lessons. You may not ever end up making a living off of being a pianist, but what you don't know is you've worked amazingly on your brain, your hand-eye coordination. There's always something that comes from that, and that's what I tell everybody. And doing that privately is one thing. Doing it and helping others or working with others makes it a lot easier, because it's just a natural thing. Your herd mentality. Everybody wants to do what everybody else is doing, kind of thing. So whether it's you're part of a band or you're doing something where you've got at least a group together in your community, that's what's going to make it easier, because you have some support, and that's also how you're going to make a difference and stuff. It's a big part, and it's where you live. Help, do your thing, do your part to help others to do theirs, and then we'll all get along and we'll have a good time, right? That's the goal anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So,
thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
All right, one last question for you.
Okay.
And this is a question we've made our mission to ask everybody that comes on the show.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to get your perspective on this. But if you were to think many, many years from now, when people reflect on your story and your time here in Casa Grande and the work that you've done, what do you hope they take away from your legacy?
The community involvement is really a big one that I hope, when you look at what have I tried to pass on to my kids, I guess that's what I'm trying to pass on to everyone. There's the bottom line of, I hope that people understand that, they didn't need to kill that snake they found in their yard or whatever as a basis, and that they understand these animals, and, that maybe they'll go on to save the world or something, but it's the community, and to understand that, whether, you look at my kids right now, what do I hope my legacy is? I've got my daughter Holly that basically runs downtown. She's, literally in a job, a community job, helping to keep the community together and being a good influence in the community. You know, Emmy running the theater, you know, I'm hoping other people that have been in my life that's the thing, you know, and I have people even now that come up to me, hey, you're the reason that I'm, you know, doing this or doing that. And I'm not out there, as much as I'm out there trying to make a difference, I'm not out there trying pointedly to every person, you know, whatever. I'm just doing my thing and hope it works. And it's always good to hear, you know, stories that you've touched somebody you don't even know. And as long as that's in a, you know, a positive way, and that's it, is kind of that community thing. I hope that, you know, I've never really sat back and said, what do I want to say on my headstone, you know, mostly because I think I want to be cremated. But anyway, but yeah, what is that wants to be in my eulogy? What do I want out there? That it was, you know, hey, he was a good father, he was a good husband, he, you know, was good for his community, did a lot, helped others, made life better for many others. I'm really, that's what I hope it is, you know, to, and to keep that going, you know, to pass that on, to maybe encourage someone else to do something that is going to encourage someone else, that's going to encourage, you know what I mean? And that's, to me, that's what legacy would be about, is to keep that going and not, you know, end it by being selfish, you know, little hermit, not doing anything, not caring, and, you know, no, that's the kind of thing that needs to be passed on. So I would say that pretty much that would be the goal, the good goal, is to be known for, you know, spreading kindness and good and making a difference. So we'll see. Hopefully I have a long time to keep doing that. Hopefully.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil.
Yeah.
We really appreciated it.
Well, thank you.